3 months after the rejection at the Galactic Council, Commander Alex Turner stood in the observation deck of Defense Station Alpha, watching dots of light appear on the edge of human space. Each dot represented an alien warship, and more appeared every hour. The message was becoming clear without any words being spoken. "Sir, we're picking up another fleet dropping out of hyperspace," reported Lieutenant Katie Bell from the sensor station. "Looks like Crexian design, maybe 30 ships. They're holding position at the Centauri boundary just like the others." Alex rubbed his tired eyes. He had not slept well in weeks, not since the alien fleet started gathering like storm clouds on the horizon. "How many does that make total?" 412 confirmed ships from 7 different species. Katie answered, her young voice tight with worry. "Intelligence thinks there might be twice that many we can't detect with stealth systems." The commander turned away from the window and walked to the main display table. A holographic map of human space showed their pathetic defenses compared to the alien forces. Earth had maybe 50 ships that could be called true warships, plus another 100 converted civilian vessels with weapons bolted onto their hulls, against nearly 1,000 alien ships with technology centuries ahead of anything humans possessed. "Any word from Admiral Blake?" Alex asked. "She's in emergency session with the Global Defense Council," came the reply from Communications Officer Danny Park, along with all the colony. "Commanders and fleet captains," Alex nodded grimly. He knew what they were discussing down there. The same thing every human military leader had been talking about since the fleet started gathering. How do you fight an enemy you cannot match? How do you protect billions of people when your weapons are useless and your shields are worthless? On Earth, President Rachel Adams sat at the head of a table surrounded by humanity's finest military minds. The underground bunker beneath Geneva had been built to survive nuclear war, but the weapons pointed at Earth now made atomic bombs look like firecrackers. "Give me the straight truth," President Adams said, her gray hair pulled back severely and her face showing the strain of sleepless nights. "No sugarcoating, no diplomatic language. What are our chances if they attack?" General Frank Collins, a large man whose uniform could barely contain his broad shoulders, leaned back in his chair. "Against their main battle fleets? 0. Ma'am, I've been a soldier for 30 years, fought in every major conflict since the water wars. I've never seen weapons like theirs. One of their cruisers could probably take out our entire Pacific fleet. Their shields can absorb anything we can throw at them," added Admiral Blake, her weathered face looking older than her 60 years. "Our best plasma cannons would be like throwing stones at a tank. Their weapons can punch through our armor like it was made of paper, and they're fast. Faster than anything we have." Colonel Amy Richardson from Special Operations leaned forward, her sharp eyes studying the tactical displays. "But they have weaknesses too. They think like military commanders from 1,000 years ago. Big fleets, direct attacks, overwhelming force. They expect their enemies to line up and fight honorably." "What are you suggesting?" asked the president. "Guerrilla warfare, hit-and-run tactics. Make them chase us through asteroid fields and nebulas where their big ships are clumsy. Force them to fight on our terms instead of theirs." General Collins shook his head. "Amy, that might work for a while, but they have the numbers. Even if we destroyed 10 of their ships for every one they take from us, they'd still win. And we can't destroy 10 of their ships. We probably can't destroy any of their ships with conventional weapons." The room fell silent except for the quiet hum of the bunker's life support systems. President Adams looked around the table at faces filled with determination mixed with despair. These were people who had spent their lives preparing for war, but never a war like this. "What about the special projects?" she asked quietly. "The ones that don't officially exist?" Dr. Nathan Price, a thin man with nervous hands and thick glasses, looked up from his tablet. "Project Wildfire is proceeding, but we need more time. At least 6 months for the first prototypes. How much time do we have?" President Adams asked Admiral Blake. "Based on their movement patterns, they're positioning for a full assault. I'd say 2 months, maybe 3 if we're lucky." Dr. Price pushed his glasses up his nose. "Then we'll have to accelerate the timeline. But I can't guarantee the weapons will be safe for our own people to use." "Better dangerous weapons than no weapons," said Colonel Richardson. "What exactly are we talking about here?" Dr. Price glanced at President Adams, who nodded for him to continue. "Quantum disruption technology. Instead of trying to match their shields, we're developing weapons that ignore them completely, plus kinetic bombardment systems that use relativity itself as a weapon. And," he paused, and some things that are designed more to terrify than to kill. Explain that last part, demanded General Collins. The aliens think we're weak because we show mercy, because we negotiate instead of just attacking. They don't understand that humans can be absolutely ruthless when we need to be. These weapons are designed to broadcast their effects across all communication frequencies. When the galaxy sees what happens to those ships, they'll think twice about attacking anyone under human protection. Admiral Blake leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. Psychological warfare. Turn our supposed weakness into their worst nightmare. Exactly. They expect us to fight like them. Big battles, honorable combat, clean victories. Instead, we'll fight like humans. Dirty, sneaky, and absolutely without mercy when our families are threatened. President Adams studied the faces around her table. Doctor, you have authorization to proceed with acceleration of all projects. Colonel Richardson, I want every special operations team preparing for unconventional warfare. Admiral Blake, start moving our civilian population to the safest possible locations. General Collins, make our conventional forces look as pathetic as possible. Ma'am? General Collins looked confused. Let them think we're even weaker than they believe. Let them get overconfident. The more they underestimate us, the more effective our real weapons will be. In space, the alien fleets continued their patient gathering. Aboard the Crexian flagship Dominator, War Leader Thok studied holographic displays of human defenses with satisfaction. The pathetic creatures had maybe 50 real warships scattered across a dozen systems. His own fleet contained 300 vessels, each one capable of destroying multiple human ships. Are the humans showing any signs of surrender? He asked his intelligence officer. No, my leader. They appear to be moving their civilian vessels away from populated areas, probably hoping to minimize casualties when we demonstrate our superiority. Thok's massive form rumbled with amusement. How thoughtful of them. When we crush their fleets, perhaps we will allow some to survive as servants. The females might be useful for manual labor. On the Zeltharian command ship Supremacy, Council Prime Vextar examined similar reports. His crystalline body pulsed with pleased purple light as he reviewed the human fleet dispositions. Even weaker than he had expected, the conquest would be swift and complete. Have we received any communication from the human leadership? He asked. Several diplomatic messages requesting negotiation, replied his aide. The usual weak pleading for peace. Ignore them. Actions matter, not words. When their ships burn and their colonies kneel, then they will understand the price of their arrogance. But in the deep spaces between stars, human ships moved with dark purpose, not the clumsy converted civilian vessels that the aliens could detect, but sleek new designs built in secret shipyards hidden in asteroid belts and gas giant moons, ships that incorporated technology the aliens had never seen, powered by human desperation and guided by human cunning. Commander Alex Turner received an encrypted message that made him smile for the first time in weeks. Lieutenant Bell, send a message to all defense stations. Begin Phase 2 preparations. And Katie? He turned to look at his young sensor officer. You might want to start recording everything. This is going to be a story worth telling. The trap was being set. The aliens had gathered their fleets expecting an easy victory over a weak species that would surrender at the first sign of real force. Instead, they had positioned themselves perfectly for humanity's response. The storm was about to begin. Lieutenant Commander Kate Lewis stood in the observation bay of Luna Base, watching the final stages of construction on humanity's most desperate gamble. The ship taking shape in the vacuum before her looked nothing like the sleek alien vessels or the clunky human designs of the past. It was angular and brutal, covered in armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. How many of these nightmares are we building? Asked Captain Roy Barnes, joining her at the window. His weathered face showed the strain of the past months, but his eyes held a fierce determination that Kate had seen in every human involved in Project Wildfire. 50 completed. Another 100 in various stages, Kate replied. Not enough to match their numbers, but hopefully enough to shock them into understanding they made a mistake. Through the reinforced glass, they could see workers in spacesuits making final adjustments to the ship's quantum drive systems. The technology was so new that the instruction manuals were still being written. More importantly, it was so dangerous that 3 of the prototype ships had simply vanished during testing, taking their crews with them into whatever dimension the quantum drives accessed. 30% casualty rate during trials, Roy muttered, reading her thoughts. And people are still volunteering faster than we can train them. Kate nodded grimly. When word had gotten out about the alien fleets gathering at the edge of human space, something had changed in humanity's collective spirit. The same species that the aliens dismissed as weak and soft had started volunteering for missions with near-certain death rates. Entire families had enlisted together, stating simply that they would rather die fighting than live as slaves. In the main construction bay, Captain Ryan Foster supervised the final checks on his squadron of quantum fighters. The ships were smaller than traditional fighters, barely large enough for a single pilot, but they incorporated technology that made them unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They could phase in and out of normal space, appearing behind enemy lines and vanishing before return fire could reach them. "Foster," came a voice over the comm system. "You're cleared for final flight testing." Ryan climbed into the cockpit of his fighter, designated Phoenix 1. The interior was cramped and Spartanly functional, with none of the comfort features found on civilian ships. Every available space was filled with weapon systems, quantum generators or armor plating. The ship had been designed with a single purpose, to kill aliens and keep killing them until it was destroyed. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Phoenix 1, Ryan spoke into his headset. "Final test flight is go. Remember, we're still at 30% survival rate on quantum jumps, so if anyone wants to back out, now's the time. Phoenix 2, ready to fly," came the immediate response from Lieutenant Sarah Moore. Her voice was steady despite the fact that she had lost her brother during the previous week's testing. "Phoenix 3, ready?" added Lieutenant Mike Chen, whose family had been living in the path of the expected alien advance. One by one, 12 pilots confirmed their readiness. Ryan engaged the quantum drive and felt the strange sensation of reality shifting around him. For a moment that lasted forever and no time at all. He existed in a space between dimensions where the normal laws of physics held no meaning. Then Phoenix 1 materialized in the asteroid belt, 200,000 kilometers from Luna base. "Quantum jump successful," he reported, trying to keep the relief out of his voice. "Beginning attack run on target asteroids." The fighter's weapons were as unconventional as its drive system. Instead of energy beams or projectiles, they fired concentrated bursts of quantum disruption that simply deleted whatever they hit from existence. Ryan locked onto a large asteroid and pulled the trigger. The rock didn't explode or melt. It simply stopped being there, leaving nothing but empty space where it had existed a moment before. "Jesus," whispered Lieutenant Moore over the comm. "It's like the universe forgot that asteroid ever existed." Back on Luna base, Dr. Helen Carter monitored the test from her laboratory deep inside the moon's core. The quantum weapons were her design, based on principles that most physicists said were impossible. But Helen had stopped caring about impossibility when she learned that alien fleets were gathering to enslave her species. "Test successful," she announced to the assembled technicians. Phoenix Squadron returned to base for final mission briefing. As the fighters began their return journey, Helen turned her attention to the larger weapons systems that were being installed throughout the solar system. Hidden platforms in the asteroid belt, concealed bases on the moons of the outer planets, and, most importantly, the gravity manipulation devices that could create artificial black holes on demand. The technology was horrifying even to its creators. When activated, the gravity weapons would tear holes in space itself, creating miniature black holes that would consume anything within a massive radius. The weapons were so powerful that they could potentially damage reality itself if used incorrectly. On Earth, engineer Lisa Murphy supervised the conversion of mining equipment into siege weapons. The great mining lasers that had carved tunnels through mountains were being modified to punch through alien armor. The massive hauler ships that moved ore between planets were being fitted with kinetic weapon systems that could accelerate chunks of metal to near light speed. "How's the civilian evacuation proceeding?" she asked her assistant, a young engineer named Craig Adams who had volunteered to help despite having no military experience. "Slowly," Craig replied, checking his tablet. "A lot of people are refusing to leave. They say they'd rather fight than hide." Lisa nodded. She had expected this response. Humans had a stubborn streak that aliens clearly didn't understand. When faced with impossible odds, most humans didn't surrender. They got angry. And an angry human was a dangerous thing, as the aliens were about to learn. In underground bunkers around the world, civilian volunteers trained with weapons they had never seen before. Grandmothers learned to operate portable quantum disruptors. Teenagers practiced with armor-piercing rifles designed to punch through alien exoskeletons. Children as young as 12 were taught to plant explosive charges and fade into the population. The aliens expected humanity to cower when their fleets arrived. Instead, every human settlement was becoming a potential death trap. Every city street could hide snipers with quantum rifles. Every building could contain bombs powerful enough to level city blocks. Every civilian could be a soldier waiting for the right moment to strike. Colonel Amy Richardson observed a training session where a group of farmers were learning to use their agricultural equipment as weapons. The fertilizer spreaders had been modified to dispense chemical weapons. The irrigation systems could flood entire areas with poisonous gas. Even the livestock had been fitted with explosive devices that could be remotely detonated. "This is insane," muttered Major Pete Nelson, watching an elderly woman practice assembling a quantum grenade. "We're turning our entire civilization into a weapon." "Good," Amy replied coldly. "They wanted to see how weak humans are. Let's show them exactly what weak humans are capable of." In the outer system, Admiral Susan Blake supervised the deployment of humanity's most secret weapon. The Doomsday Protocol was so classified that only a dozen people knew it existed. If Earth fell, if humanity was facing extinction, the protocol would activate weapons that could sterilize entire star systems. "Are you sure about this?" asked her aide, a young officer named Tony Garcia, who had been with her since the beginning of the crisis. "I'm not sure about anything anymore," Susan replied, watching as technicians installed the final components. "But I know one thing, if humanity dies, we're not going quietly. The aliens want to conquer us because they think we're weak. If they succeed, they'll learn that destroying Earth was the worst mistake in galactic history." The alien fleets continued their patient approach, unaware that their intended victims had spent months preparing for their arrival. The Crexians expected to face weak human ships that would break at the first attack. The Zeltharians anticipated easy victory over a species too soft for real war. The other allied species looked forward to claiming human worlds as prizes. None of them realized that humanity's apparent weakness had been hiding something far more dangerous, a species that had evolved to survive by being more ruthless than anything that tried to kill them. A species that had spent millions of years learning to turn tools into weapons, prey into predators, and desperation into devastating fury. As the alien fleets moved into the outer edges of the solar system, automated sensors detected their approach and began transmitting coded signals. In hidden bases throughout human space, pilots climbed into their fighters and engineers made final checks on weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics. The aliens were expecting to face a weak species armed with primitive technology. Instead, they were about to encounter humanity at its most dangerous, cornered, desperate, and absolutely unwilling to surrender. The storm was ready to break. Commander Tony Garcia watched the alien advance fleet approach through the bridge viewport of the Earth defense ship Valiant. His orders were simple: put up a fight that looked like humanity's best effort, then lose convincingly. The hardest part was making sure his crew understood they were supposed to fail. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, reported Lieutenant Jenny Walsh from the sensor station. 30 alien ships, mixed Crexian and Zeltharian classes. They're not even trying to hide." Tony nodded grimly. The aliens' arrogance was working perfectly for humanity's plan. They were approaching the outer defense perimeter like they owned the place, confident that human technology posed no real threat. In a few hours they would learn just how wrong they were, but not yet. "Send a message to all ships," Tony ordered. "Remember, we're supposed to lose this fight, but we need to make it look good. Fight hard, make them work for it, then fall back when I give the signal." The human fleet that met the aliens at the edge of the solar system consisted of 20 ships, the most modern vessels in Earth's conventional navy. Their crews had trained for months to lose this battle in exactly the right way. Too easy, and the aliens would suspect a trap. Too hard, and they might retreat and call for reinforcements before the real trap could be sprung. Aboard the Crexian flagship destroyer, War Leader Thok examined the approaching human vessels with satisfaction. The ships looked even more pathetic than his intelligence reports had suggested. Their armor was thin, their weapons were crude chemical projectiles, and their shields were so weak that his sensors could barely detect them. "Prepare to broadcast our victory across all frequencies," he rumbled to his communications officer. "I want the entire galaxy to see how quickly human warships crumble before real military power." The first exchange of fire went exactly as planned. The alien ships unleashed energy beams that cut through human armor like paper. The humans responded with missiles and plasma cannons that exploded harmlessly against alien shields. Within minutes, 3 human ships were burning wrecks drifting through space. "Fall back to secondary positions," Tony ordered, his voice carrying the right mixture of determination and desperation. The Valiant shuddered as alien weapons tore through her hull, venting atmosphere and sparks. Around him, his crew played their roles perfectly, shouting damage reports and calling for emergency repairs. For 30 minutes, the battle raged across the outer system. The humans fought with courage and skill, but their weapons simply could not penetrate alien defenses. One by one, Earth's ships were destroyed or crippled. The aliens pressed forward with growing confidence, broadcasting their easy victory to their fleets waiting deeper in space. "Sir," called Lieutenant Walsh, her face pale but determined. "We've lost the Defender and the Guardian. The Courage is venting atmosphere. I think it's time for the signal." Tony looked around his damaged bridge, noting the sparks flying from control panels and the smoke drifting through the air. His ship had taken a real beating to make this deception convincing. "All ships, this is Commander Garcia. Execute Protocol Omega immediately." The remaining human vessels began a fighting retreat toward Mars, their movements appearing panicked and disorganized. The aliens followed eagerly, sensing complete victory. What they couldn't detect were the stealth beacons that each retreating human ship was dropping, marking their exact positions for the weapon systems hidden in the asteroid belt. On the Zeltharian command ship Supremacy, Council Prime Vextar watched the human retreat with crystalline satisfaction. His body pulsed with pleased purple light as he observed the primitive human vessels limping away from his superior forces. "Send word to the main fleet," he commanded. "The human defenses are even weaker than anticipated. We can proceed with the full invasion immediately. This species will be enslaved within days." The message traveled through subspace to the massive alien armada waiting at the edge of the system. Hundreds of ships began moving toward Earth, their crews already celebrating the easy conquest to come. They spoke of dividing human worlds among themselves, of using human labor to build new monuments to their power. But in the asteroid belt, Captain Sandy Brooks received a very different kind of message. Hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid, her experimental ship Retribution had been waiting for this moment for weeks. The stealth systems that concealed her vessel were based on technology that wouldn't be invented for another century. If the aliens had their way. "Targets acquired," reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Ben Foster. "The alien advance fleet is passing through firing coordinates Alpha 7 through Alpha 15. Perfect positioning for the kinetic arrays." Sandy smiled grimly as she activated the weapons that would announce humanity's real capabilities to the galaxy. "Fire all arrays. Show them what weak humans can do when they're angry." The kinetic weapons that erupted from the asteroid belt were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of energy beams or explosive projectiles, they fired chunks of dense metal accelerated to incredible speeds by quantum enhancement fields. The projectiles moved so fast that they appeared to teleport from one point to another, striking their targets before sensors could track them. The alien advance fleet never knew what hit them. One moment they were pursuing retreating human vessels, broadcasting their victory to the galaxy. The next moment, 3 of their cruisers simply ceased to exist, reduced to expanding clouds of superheated plasma by weapons that ignored their shields completely. War Leader Thok felt his flagship shudder as something punched through armor that had never been breached. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the ship as atmosphere vented through holes that seemed to have appeared from nowhere. "What happened?" he roared. "What are those weapons?" His tactical officer, a smaller Crexian whose exoskeleton was pale with shock, struggled to make sense of his readings. "Unknown, my leader." The projectiles moved faster than our sensors could track. They appear to be simple metal, but moving at speeds that should be impossible. Before Thok could respond, 2 more alien ships were struck by the invisible weapons. The vessels simply came apart, their hulls shredded by impacts that transferred impossible amounts of kinetic energy. The proud alien advance fleet, which had been celebrating victory moments before, suddenly found itself under attack by enemies they couldn't see using weapons they couldn't understand. "Retreat to safe distance," Thok ordered, his warrior's pride warring with his survival instincts. "Regroup and assess the situation." But the mysterious attackers weren't finished. As the alien ships began to withdraw, the second phase of humanity's ambush began. Captain Ryan Foster and Phoenix Squadron materialized out of quantum space, their fighters appearing directly behind the retreating alien vessels. The quantum fighters were impossible according to galactic science. Ships could not simply phase in and out of normal space, appearing and vanishing at will. Yet the human fighters did exactly that, striking with their reality-warping weapons and disappearing before return fire could reach them. Lieutenant Sarah Moore locked onto a Zeltharian destroyer and fired her quantum disruptor. The alien ship didn't explode or burn. It simply stopped existing in normal space, leaving behind a void that hurt to look at. Her fighter vanished back into quantum space before the other alien vessels could target her. Phoenix 2, confirmed kill, she reported, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. Target completely eliminated. One by one, Phoenix Squadron struck at the confused alien fleet. Each attack lasted only seconds, but each left another enemy vessel destroyed or crippled. The aliens found themselves fighting ghosts, trying to target enemies that existed in dimensions their sensors couldn't detect. Council Prime Vextar watched his advanced fleet being systematically destroyed by weapons that shouldn't exist, deployed by a species he had dismissed as primitive and weak. His crystalline form shifted through colors he had never displayed before: confusion, fear, and something approaching respect. "Send an emergency message to the main fleet," he ordered. "The humans have capabilities we did not anticipate. Their technology is far more advanced than our intelligence suggested. We need immediate reinforcements." But Admiral Susan Blake, monitoring the battle from her command ship deep in the asteroid belt, smiled coldly as she intercepted the alien communications. "Let them call for help," she said to her staff. "The more ships they bring, the bigger the demonstration will be." The first phase of humanity's response was complete. The aliens had come expecting to face a weak species with primitive weapons. Instead, they had encountered technology that rewrote the rules of warfare. Ships that could strike without being detected, weapons that ignored physical laws, fighters that existed partially outside normal reality. The alien advance fleet limped back to their main formation, carrying word of humanity's hidden capabilities. But they had no way of knowing that what they had experienced was only the beginning. The real storm was still gathering, and when it broke, it would teach the galaxy a lesson about underestimating the species they had called weak. For the first time in galactic history, human weapons had drawn alien blood. The taste of victory was sweet, but the humans who had planned this moment knew it was only the appetizer. The main course was still to... The main alien armada approached Earth with the caution of predators who had suddenly discovered that their prey had teeth. War Leader Thok's forces had been reduced to half their original strength, and Council Prime Vextar's supposedly invincible fleet looked like it had been through a meat grinder. But they still outnumbered the humans 10-1, and their desperation to salvage something from this disaster drove them forward. Admiral Susan Blake stood on the bridge of the dreadnought USS Defiance, watching the alien fleet approach through the viewports that offered a direct view of space. Her ship was the largest vessel humanity had ever built, constructed in secret over the past 2 years using technology that officially didn't exist. Around her, the crew moved with the calm efficiency of people who knew they were about to make history. "Admiral, all ships are in position," reported Captain Jake Martinez, her tactical coordinator. "The enemy fleet is entering the engagement zone. Estimate 12 minutes until they're in optimal firing range." Susan nodded, studying the tactical display that showed both fleets converging on the space between Earth and Mars. The human formation looked pitifully small compared to the alien armada, but appearances could be deceiving. Every human ship incorporated technology that had been impossible 6 months ago, powered by the desperate ingenuity of a species fighting for its survival. "Signal all vessels," Susan commanded. "Execute Battle Plan Omega. Show them what happens when humans get angry." The USS Defiance led a formation of ships that represented humanity's greatest technological achievement. The Retribution, commanded by Major Nick Thompson, was a prototype warship equipped with quantum artillery that could punch holes through reality itself. The Vengeance 2, built to replace the ship that had died gloriously in the asteroid belt, carried kinetic weapons that could crack planets. The Freedom, Fury, and Relentless completed the battle line, each one carrying enough firepower to sterilize a continent. But the most dangerous weapon in the human fleet wasn't visible to alien sensors. The ship's artificial intelligence systems had been programmed with tactical data from every human conflict in history, from ancient battles with spears and shields to the most recent orbital conflicts. The AI had learned something that no alien military computer had ever understood, that humans fought most effectively when they abandoned all rules and restrictions. Contact, bearing 357 Mark 12, reported the sensor officer. Krexian battle group moving to flank our position. Looks like they're trying to use conventional military tactics. Susan smiled coldly. The aliens were still thinking like traditional military commanders, trying to outflank and surround their enemies. They didn't understand that humans had spent the last few months turning traditional military thinking into a death trap. Major Nick Thompson watched the approaching alien fleet from the Bridge of Retribution and felt a fierce joy building in his chest. His ship was built around a single massive weapon that drew power directly from the quantum vacuum itself. When fired, it would create a brief tear in the fabric of space-time, allowing the ship to strike targets that were technically in different dimensions. Quantum artillery charged and ready, reported his weapons officer, Lieutenant Kate Wilson. We have firing solutions on 17 enemy capital ships. Wait for the Admiral's signal, Nick replied. Let them get close enough to see what's coming. The alien fleet advanced in a classic pincer formation, trying to surround the smaller human force and crush it through overwhelming firepower. War Leader Thok commanded the left flank, his remaining ships spread out to cover the maximum possible area. Council Prime Vextar led the center, his crystalline form pulsing with confident purple light as he anticipated final victory. The right flank was commanded by Admiral Zektoth, a species that resembled giant armored squids and claimed to have never lost a space battle. They were confident because the numbers were on their side. 500 alien ships against 50 human vessels, advanced weapons and shields against primitive human technology. The logic of the situation demanded their victory, but logic had never been humanity's strong suit. All ships, this is Admiral Blake, Susan announced across all frequencies. The enemy fleet is in position. Execute Phase 1 of Battle Plan Omega. Show them that Earth protects its own. The space around the human fleet suddenly filled with new contacts as cloaked ships revealed themselves. Hidden weapon platforms that had been disguised as asteroids opened fire with energy beams that could melt battle armor like butter. Stealth mines that had been drifting innocuously through space activated their quantum warheads, creating explosions that deleted chunks of reality from existence. The careful alien formation dissolved into chaos as commanders realized they had flown into the center of a trap that had been months in the making. Every piece of debris, every seemingly empty patch of space, every innocent-looking asteroid had been weaponized by humans who refused to accept defeat. Captain Roy Barnes, commanding the rebuilt Vengeance, targeted the alien flagship with his kinetic artillery. The projectile that emerged from his ship's main gun moved so fast that it arrived at its target before the muzzle flash faded. The Krexian dreadnought, armor that could withstand the heat of stars, simply ceased to exist as the kinetic energy turned its own mass into a weapon against itself. Confirmed kill on enemy flagship, Roy reported, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his system. Target completely destroyed. No survivors detected. Across the battlefield, human ships revealed capabilities that violated everything the aliens thought they knew about physics. The USS Freedom phased in and out of normal space, appearing behind enemy lines to fire quantum torpedoes that ignored shields and armor. The Fury created miniature black holes that consumed entire enemy squadrons before collapsing back into nothingness. The Relentless fired streams of exotic matter that turned enemy ships into expanding clouds of superheated plasma. But the most terrifying sight was the USS Defiance itself. Admiral Blake's flagship was equipped with the ultimate expression of human weapons technology, a reality manipulation device that could rewrite the fundamental laws of physics in a localized area. When activated, it created zones where alien weapons simply stopped working while human weapons became impossibly effective. War Leader Thok watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by weapons that his scientists insisted were impossible. His tactical officers were reporting contacts that appeared and vanished at will, energy readings that exceeded theoretical maximums, and gravitational anomalies that shouldn't exist in normal space. How are they doing this? He demanded, his massive form trembling with rage and fear. These are the same pathetic creatures we dismissed as weak. His science officer, her exoskeleton pale with terror, struggled to make sense of the readings. My leader, they appear to have weaponized fundamental forces we barely understand. Gravity, quantum mechanics, space-time itself. They've turned the universe into their weapon. Council Prime Vextar's crystalline form was cycling through colors that indicated panic and disbelief. His supposedly invincible fleet was being torn apart by enemies who fought without honor, without rules, and without mercy. The humans didn't engage in ship-to-ship combat. They deleted their targets from existence with weapons that ignored every known law of physics. Admiral Zektoth's squid-like form writhed in frustration as his right flank collapsed under the human assault. His species had conquered dozens of worlds through superior tactics and overwhelming force. But the humans weren't fighting a battle, they were conducting an extermination. Retreat. Vextar broadcast across all frequencies. All ships retreat to minimum safe distance. We need time to regroup and analyze their capabilities. But Admiral Blake had been waiting for this moment. As the alien ships turned to flee, the second phase of Battle Plan Omega activated. Hidden throughout the solar system were quantum interdiction fields that could prevent faster-than-light travel. The aliens found themselves trapped in normal space, unable to escape the system they had entered so confidently. "Attention alien fleets," Susan broadcast on all frequencies, her voice carrying the cold authority of someone who had just proven her point. "You came here expecting to conquer a weak species. You called us pathetic, primitive, and worthless. You planned to enslave our children and strip our worlds bare." The alien commanders listened in growing horror as she continued. "You made one critical error. You confused mercy with weakness. You mistook our desire for peace as inability to wage war. You thought that because we prefer negotiation to violence, we would be helpless when violence became necessary." Major Nick Thompson fired his quantum artillery again, deleting another alien capital ship from existence. Around him, human vessels continued their systematic destruction of the invasion fleet, each kill announced by brief flashes of light that marked the end of alien crews who had laughed at humanity's weakness. "You wanted to see human strength," Admiral Blake continued, her words being recorded and broadcast across the galaxy by alien communication systems. "This is human strength. We turned our entire solar system into a weapon. We invented technologies your science says are impossible. We created an entire fleet of warships in secret while pretending to be helpless victims." The emergency signal arrived at Earth Command at 0347 hours on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Lisa Hayes was pulled from her sleep by the urgent beeping of her communication device. She had been working 18-hour days for months, but sleep was a luxury that few humans could afford anymore. "Admiral Hayes, report to Command Center immediately," the voice on the communicator said. "Priority Alpha emergency." Priority Alpha meant only one thing: alien contact. But this time, it was not humans trying to contact aliens. This was aliens desperately trying to contact anyone who would listen. Lisa arrived at the command center to find chaos. Dozens of technicians were monitoring communication channels from across the galaxy. The main screen showed a map of known civilizations, and red warning lights were flashing on systems throughout the galactic rim. General Kane stood at the center of the activity, his face grim. "Admiral, we have a situation. Something is attacking the outer colonies of the Galactic Council." Lisa studied the tactical display. "Who is attacking them?" "Unknown. The aliens are calling it the Void Swarm. From what we can determine, it is a parasitic species that consumes entire civilizations. The Council's outer defenses have been completely overrun." Lieutenant Dan Foster ran up with a data tablet. "Admiral, we are receiving distress calls from 17 different star systems. The signals are coming from Chronari, Zephyrian, and Aquarian colonies." Lisa took the tablet and read the translated messages. The words were desperate and terrified. "Help us. The void consumes everything. Our weapons are useless. Entire fleets are being destroyed. Billions are dying." These were the same aliens who had mocked humanity just months earlier. The same species who had called humans primitive and weak. Now they were begging for help from anyone who would listen. Jake Morrison entered the command center, still putting on his uniform. "What is the status of the human fleet?" 47 ships combat ready, Lisa replied. 18,000 Marines, full weapons loadout, and enough supplies for extended operations. Jake looked at the tactical display showing the extent of the Void Swarm's advance. "Against how many enemy ships?" General Kane pulled up the intelligence estimates. "Unknown. But the Chronari had over 300 ships in their outer defense fleet. They have been completely destroyed. The Zephyrians lost 200 vessels in the first attack. Even the Aquarians, who can usually retreat by dispersing their forms, are being consumed faster than they can escape. President Maria Santos appeared on the main communication screen. She looked like she had not slept in days. I have been in contact with world leaders for the past 6 hours. The situation is worse than we initially thought. How much worse? Lisa asked. The Void Swarm is not just destroying alien fleets, Santos replied. It is consuming entire planets. The parasites are spreading through star systems like a plague. Advanced alien technology is not slowing them down at all. Jake studied the invasion pattern on the tactical display. How long before they reach the inner systems? General Kane ran the calculations. At their current rate of advance, the Void will reach the Galactic Council's core worlds within 6 months. Earth would be threatened within 2 years. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. What are the aliens doing to stop them? Lieutenant Foster pulled up intercepted alien communications. Council leader Vextar has called an emergency session. They are trying to coordinate a joint defense, but their traditional tactics are proving completely ineffective against the Void Swarm. The main screen switched to show an alien news broadcast. The Chronari reporter looked shaken as he described the fall of the Meridian system. The Void ships are unlike anything we have encountered. They do not use energy weapons or shields. They simply consume everything in their path. Our most advanced warships are being absorbed and converted into more Void vessels. Another broadcast showed Zephyrian scientists trying to analyze Void technology. The parasites appear to feed on organized matter and energy, the crystal-skinned alien explained. They convert starships, space stations, and even planets into more of themselves. It is a form of technological consumption that we have never seen before. Jake realized the horrible truth. They are not just invaders. They are a consuming plague. They turn everything they touch into more of themselves. Lisa nodded grimly. And the aliens have never faced anything like this. Their elegant weapons and sophisticated defenses are useless against an enemy that simply eats everything. President Santos leaned forward on the screen. I have called an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. We need to decide how humanity will respond to this crisis. Respond? Lisa asked. Madam President, this is not our fight. The aliens made it clear that we are not part of their civilization. They called us primitives and refused our membership in their council. That is true, Santos replied. But if the Void Swarm consumes the galaxy, Earth will eventually be threatened. We can fight them now alongside the aliens, or we can fight them later alone. General Kane pulled up projections of the Void Swarm's advance. If the aliens fall, the Void will have consumed the technology and resources of 12 advanced civilizations. By the time they reach Earth, they will be unstoppable. Jake saw the logic, but he also saw the opportunity. Or we can let the aliens weaken the Void Swarm and then strike when both sides are exhausted. Lisa was surprised by Jake's suggestion. You want to let the aliens die? I want to consider all our options, Jake replied. The aliens humiliated humanity. They treated us like children and broadcast our rejection across the galaxy. Why should we risk human lives to save people who despise us? It was a fair question, and everyone in the command center knew it. The aliens had made it clear that they viewed humans as inferior beings who needed to be protected from themselves. They had denied humanity the right to expand into space or develop advanced technology. But Dr. Helen Carter entered the room at that moment, and she had a different perspective. Because that is what humans do, she said simply. What do you mean? Jake asked. We help people who need help, even if those people have been cruel to us. It is one of the things that makes us human. We do not abandon innocents to die just because their leaders were arrogant. Lisa considered Helen's words. The diplomat had a point. There were billions of innocent aliens in the path of the Void Swarm. Many of them had never even heard of humanity, let alone participated in their rejection. General Kane received a new communication and his face went pale. The situation just got worse. The Void Swarm has reached the Kepler system. They are attacking the same space station where humanity was rejected by the Galactic Council. The irony was not lost on anyone. The place where humanity had been humiliated was now under attack by an enemy that the advanced aliens could not stop. President Santos made the decision for all of them. Prepare the fleet for immediate departure. We are going to help defend the Kepler system. Madam President, Jake protested. Our ships are designed for defense, not attack. We have never fought a space battle against an unknown enemy. Then it is time we learned, Santos replied firmly. General Kane, you have full authority to deploy human forces as you see fit. Admiral Hayes, prepare your ships for combat. Commander Blake, ready your Marines for boarding operations. Lisa felt a mixture of fear and anticipation. What are our orders? Santos looked directly at her through the screen. Show the galaxy what humans are capable of when we stop asking for permission and start taking action. The aliens want to see our strength? Give them a demonstration they will never forget. The communication ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. Jake looked at the tactical display showing the void swarms advance toward the Kepler system. In 6 hours, the human fleet would depart for its first major space battle. They would be facing an enemy that had already destroyed fleets far more advanced than anything humanity possessed. But as Jake looked around the command center, he saw determination on every face. These people had spent months preparing for exactly this moment. They had built weapons designed to destroy anything that threatened humanity. They had trained soldiers to fight in conditions that would kill most alien species. Most importantly, they had something that the advanced alien civilizations seemed to have lost: the willingness to fight against impossible odds. Lisa stood up and addressed the room. All stations prepare for fleet departure in T-minus 6 hours. This is what we trained for. This is why we built these ships and weapons. The aliens called us primitive. But they are about to learn what human primitives can do when civilized people are in danger. The command center erupted in activity as the human war machine began to move. Ships were fueled, weapons were loaded, and soldiers prepared for battle. Somewhere in the depths of space, the void swarm continued its advance, consuming everything in its path. The advanced alien civilizations were falling back in terror, their sophisticated technology proving useless against an enemy that simply ate everything. But they were about to encounter something new. Humans who had spent their entire history learning how to fight against overwhelming odds and win. The galaxy was about to discover why it was a mistake to dismiss humanity as weak and primitive. The hornet's nest had been kicked, and humanity was angry. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the human flagship Vengeful Dawn as it emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. The sight that greeted them was beyond anything they had prepared for. The space around the alien council station was filled with the wreckage of what had once been mighty fleets, chronary warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built, drifted as burning hulks through the void. Zephyrian crystal vessels lay shattered like broken glass against the darkness of space. Even the fluid Aquarian ships had been somehow frozen into twisted, unnatural shapes. "Dear God," whispered Lieutenant Dan Foster from the communication station. "How many ships did they lose?" Captain Ryan Brooks, now commanding the heavy cruiser Iron Fist, appeared on the tactical screen. "Sensors are reading debris from over 400 vessels. This was not a battle. This was a slaughter." Jake felt his stomach tighten as he studied the tactical display. The Void Swarm ships were unlike anything in human databases. They looked organic, like massive spaceborne insects with hulls that seemed to shift and change as they moved. Some were the size of human destroyers. Others were larger than space stations. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Patricia Wong from the sensor station, "I am detecting life signs from several alien vessels. There are survivors trapped in the wreckage." Jake did not hesitate. "All ships begin search and rescue operations immediately. Commander Blake, deploy your Marines for emergency boarding actions." Commander Susan Blake's voice crackled over the communication system from her Marine assault ship. "Marines are ready, Admiral. We will get those survivors out." The human fleet moved into action with precision that surprised even Jake. These ships had been built for war, but their first action was to save the lives of aliens who had rejected humanity just months earlier. It felt right somehow, very human. The Void Swarm seemed to notice the arrival of the human fleet. The organic-looking ships began to turn toward the newcomers, their movements flowing like schools of predatory fish. Jake could see why alien tactics had failed against them. The Void ships did not move like traditional spacecraft. They moved like living creatures hunting prey. "Communication incoming from the alien station," Lieutenant Foster announced. "It is Council Leader Vexitar himself." The main screen activated, showing the tall Chronari leader. His gray skin was darker than usual, and Jake could see genuine fear in his 4 eyes. "Human vessels," Vexitar transmitted. "What are you doing here?" "This system is under attack by hostiles. You must retreat immediately." Jake opened a channel to respond. Council Leader Vextar, this is Admiral Morrison of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress signals and came to assist. Vextar looked confused and desperate. Assist? But you are humans. Your ships are primitive. Your weapons are crude. You cannot fight the Void Swarm. With respect, Council Leader, Jake replied calmly. You thought our ships were primitive when they were exploration vessels. These are warships. There is a difference. Before Vextar could respond, the Void Swarm attacked. The organic ships moved with terrifying speed, flowing through space like a living tide. Their weapons were not energy beams or missiles, but tendrils of dark matter that reached out to grab and consume everything they touched. Jake watched as a void ship extended its tendrils toward a crippled Chronari vessel. Where the dark matter touched the alien ship's hull, the metal began to dissolve and flow into the void creature. The ship was being eaten alive. All ships engage the enemy, Jake commanded. Show them what human weapons can do. The human fleet opened fire with a sound that the vacuum of space could not carry, but that every human felt in their bones. The kinetic cannons that Dr. Webb had designed roared to life, sending tungsten slugs the size of telephone poles racing toward the void ships at a significant fraction of light speed. The first void creature to be hit simply ceased to exist. The kinetic round punched through its organic hull and continued into the creature behind it. The explosion that followed lit up space like a small sun. Captain Brooks's voice came over the communication channel, filled with savage satisfaction. Target destroyed. These things do not like being hit with large pieces of metal moving very fast. The human ships moved in ways that alien fleets never did. Instead of maintaining precise formations and firing from long range, they dove directly into the void swarm, like ancient fighters charging into battle. Their thick armor absorbed damage that would have crippled alien vessels, while their weapons fired at ranges so close that missing was impossible. Commander Blake's Marines were performing miracles of their own. The void creatures had boarded several alien ships, consuming the crews and converting the vessels to their own use. But when human Marines encountered the parasites in the narrow corridors of damaged ships, the results were very different. Marines engaging void boarders on the Chronari cruiser Honor's Edge, Blake reported. These things are tough, but they do not know how to fight humans in close combat. Jake could hear weapons fire in the background of Blake's transmission. Human soldiers were fighting hand-to-hand with cosmic parasites, and the humans were winning. The void creatures were designed to consume advanced technology and sophisticated defenses. They were not prepared for humans with shotguns and fusion grenades who fought like their lives depended on it. The battle raged for 6 hours. Human ships took damage that would have sent alien vessels running for repair facilities. But they kept fighting. When the Iron Fist lost its main engines, Captain Brooks used maneuvering thrusters to ram a void ship. When the human destroyer Thunder Bay had its weapons destroyed, its crew used the ship itself as a weapon, crashing into void creatures and detonating their fusion reactor. Jake watched the tactical display with growing amazement. The human fleet was outnumbered 3-1, but they were winning, not through superior technology or elegant tactics, but through sheer determination and the willingness to keep fighting no matter how much damage they took. Admiral, Lieutenant Wong called from sensors. The void swarm is beginning to withdraw. They are falling back toward the system's outer edge. Jake could barely believe it. The same enemy that had destroyed hundreds of advanced alien ships was retreating from less than 50 human vessels. Council Leader Vextar appeared on the communication screen again. This time his expression was completely different. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something Jake had never seen from an alien before. Respect. Admiral Morrison, Vexatar said slowly, your tactics are unprecedented. How did you know to target their coordination nodes? Jake was honest in his reply. We did not know anything about coordination nodes. We just shot at them until they stopped moving. Vextar made a sound that the translator identified as disbelief. You mean you achieved victory through brute force? We achieved victory, Jake corrected. Through the willingness to take damage and keep fighting. Your ships are more advanced than ours, but they are designed to avoid damage. Our ships are designed to absorb damage and continue functioning. The Chronari leader looked at the human fleet with new eyes. Ships that had looked crude and primitive now appeared tough and determined. Weapons that had seemed simple now looked devastatingly effective. Your Marines, Vextar continued. They fought the Void Borders in hand-to-hand combat. Our security forces were overwhelmed in minutes, but your soldiers cleared entire decks of parasites. Commander Blake's voice joined the conversation. Council leader, our Marines train for close combat because we know that sometimes technology fails. When your fancy energy weapons stop working, you still need to know how to fight with your hands. Dr. Helen Carter, monitoring the communication from the diplomatic vessel, added her own observation. The Void Swarm is designed to consume advanced civilizations that rely on technology for defense. But humans come from a world where the most dangerous threats were often other humans. We learned to fight wars where both sides had similar technology. So we developed tactics based on determination rather than technological superiority. Jake looked at the retreating Void Swarm and felt a mixture of pride and sadness. Pride because humanity had proven itself in battle against a threat that advanced aliens could not stop. Sadness because it had taken a crisis to show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. Council Leader Vextar, Jake said formally, Earth offers its assistance in developing anti-void tactics and training your forces in close combat techniques. Vextar was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a tone that Jake had never heard from an alien before. Humility. Admiral Morrison, the proud Chronari leader, said, The Galactic Council would be honored to accept Earth's assistance. We have made errors in judgment regarding humanity's capabilities. It was not quite an apology, but it was a start. Jake looked around the bridge of the Vengeful Dawn at his crew. These people had taken ships that aliens called primitive and used them to defeat an enemy that had destroyed the most advanced fleets in the galaxy. They had proven that sometimes the best technology was the technology that kept working when everything else failed. More importantly, they had shown the galaxy that humans were not the weak, primitive children that the aliens had assumed them to be. They were warriors who fought with courage, determination, and the refusal to surrender even when facing impossible odds. The medical bay of the Galactic Council station was filled with a mixture of alien species that Jake Morrison had never seen working together before. Human medics worked alongside Zephyrian crystal healers to treat wounded Chronari soldiers. Aquarian medical specialists flowed between patients while human Marines stood guard in the corridors. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, Earth's chief medical officer, looked up from treating a Chronari warrior who had been injured in the Void attack. The alien's wounds were severe, but human medical techniques were proving surprisingly effective at treating alien physiology. "How is he doing?" asked Commander Susan Blake as she entered the medical bay. Susan's marine armor was scarred and damaged from the boarding actions, but she refused medical treatment until her soldiers were cared for. "He will live," Dr. Mitchell replied, "but he keeps asking about the human soldiers who saved his ship. He wants to understand how we fought the void creatures in hand-to-hand combat." Susan smiled grimly. "Tell him it is simple. We hit them with everything we had until they stopped moving." Across the medical bay, a group of Zephyrian scientists were examining human weapons that had been damaged in the battle. Their crystal bodies chimed with musical tones that the universal translator converted to words of amazement and confusion. "These kinetic weapons are so crude," one scientist was saying to her colleague, "but they are devastatingly effective against void armor. Our energy weapons barely scratched the creatures, but these metal projectiles punched through them like paper." Lieutenant Dan Foster, who was helping to coordinate communication between the different species, overheard the conversation. "Ma'am, our weapons are designed to be simple and reliable. We learned long ago that the best weapon is one that works every time you pull the trigger." The Zephyrian scientist looked at Dan with new interest. "Your species has an unusual philosophy about technology. Most civilizations develop more sophisticated tools as they advance." "Most civilizations," Dan replied, "never had to fight world wars where both sides had similar technology. We learned that sophistication is useless if your weapon fails when you need it most." Admiral Jake Morrison received a communication request from Council Leader Vexatar and accepted it on his personal communicator. The Chronari leader appeared as a hologram, and Jake was surprised to see that the alien looked exhausted and shaken. "Admiral Morrison," Vextar began, "I have been in communication with the other council members. We are requesting a formal meeting to discuss joint operations against the Void Swarm." Jake was careful to keep his expression neutral. "Council leader, I thought humans were considered too primitive to participate in galactic defense." Vextar's forearms moved in what Jake had learned was a gesture of embarrassment among the Chronari. "We have made errors in judgment. Your species has capabilities that we did not recognize or understand, such as, your ships absorbed damage that would have destroyed our vessels and continued fighting. Your soldiers engaged void creatures in close combat and won. Your weapons, while simple, proved more effective than our most advanced systems. Jake nodded. Our ships are built to keep fighting even when badly damaged. Our soldiers are trained to fight with whatever they have available. Our weapons are designed to work under any conditions. Vexstar was quiet for a moment. Why did you come to help us? After we rejected your application for council membership, you could have left us to face the void alone. It was a fair question, and Jake had been thinking about the answer since the battle ended. Because that is what humans do. We help people who need help, regardless of how they have treated us in the past. Even when those people have been arrogant and dismissive? Especially then, Jake replied. We learned long ago that sometimes the people who need help the most are the ones who are too proud to ask for it. The conversation was interrupted by an emergency alert from the tactical center. Captain Ryan Brooks appeared on the communication screen, his face grim. Admiral, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting a massive void swarm formation approaching from the galactic rim. This force is 10 times larger than what we just fought. Jake felt his stomach drop. How long until they reach the inner systems? At current speed, 6 days. But Admiral, there is something else. The swarm is not just moving randomly. They are following organized attack patterns. The void creatures are learning from our tactics. Jake immediately understood the implications. The enemy they had just defeated was adapting to human strategies. The next battle would be much more difficult. Dr. Helen Carter entered the communication feed from her diplomatic station. Admiral, I have been monitoring alien communications. The news of our victory is spreading throughout the galaxy, but so is the size of the approaching swarm. Several alien governments are beginning to panic. What kind of panic? Jake asked. Some species are advocating for complete withdrawal to the galactic core. Others are suggesting that individual systems should negotiate separate peace treaties with the void. The unity that held the council together is beginning to crack. Jake realized that humanity's victory had created a new problem. By proving that the void could be fought, they had given the aliens hope. But the approaching massive swarm was threatening to destroy that hope and replace it with despair. Colonel Steve Turner contacted them from the orbital defense platforms he was constructing around the council station. Admiral, we have been analyzing void technology captured during the battle. Dr. Webb's team has made some disturbing discoveries. What kind of discoveries? Jake asked. The void creatures are not just consuming matter and energy, Steve replied. They are consuming information. Every ship they destroy, every planet they devour, every civilization they encounter makes them smarter and more dangerous. Dr. Patricia Webb joined the conversation from her mobile laboratory. The void swarm is essentially a learning organism. It adapts to new threats by incorporating the knowledge and technology of everything it consumes. The force that is approaching has learned from dozens of advanced civilizations. Jake began to understand the true scope of the threat they were facing. You are saying that the void has absorbed the military knowledge of every species it has destroyed? Exactly, Patricia confirmed. They know Chronari battle tactics, Zephyrian energy weapon technology, and Aquarian fluid combat techniques. They have probably incorporated all of this knowledge into their next attack. But Commander Blake, monitoring from her marine training facility, had a different perspective. That means they know how to fight alien-style wars. But they have never fought humans before today. Jake felt a spark of hope. You think our tactics will still be effective? I think our tactics will be more effective, Susan replied confidently. The Void Swarm has spent its existence consuming civilizations that fight predictable, organized wars. But humans fight dirty, chaotic, improvised wars where the rules change constantly. Lieutenant Foster added his own analysis. The aliens fight wars like chess matches, with careful planning and predetermined strategies. But humans fight wars like street fights, where anything goes and the winner is whoever refuses to quit. Jake looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Void Swarm. The enemy force was massive, intelligent, and had absorbed the military knowledge of dozens of civilizations. Under normal circumstances, the situation would be hopeless. But these were not normal circumstances. For the first time in galactic history, human military doctrine would be combined with alien technology and resources. The result would be unlike anything the Void Swarm had encountered before. Admiral Lisa Hayes contacted them from Earth Command. Jake, I have authorization from President Santos to offer full military cooperation to the Galactic Council. We are prepared to share all human tactical knowledge and training methods with alien forces. Vexitar, who had been listening to the conversation, spoke up. Admiral Hayes, the Galactic Council formally accepts Earth's offer of military cooperation. We are also prepared to share our advanced technology with human forces. Jake felt history changing around him. 6 months ago, humanity had been rejected by the galactic community. Now they were being asked to lead the defense against the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. Council leader, Jake said formally, Earth accepts the responsibility of joint command for anti-void operations. But we will do this the human way. What does that mean? Vextor asked. Jake smiled grimly. It means we are going to teach the galaxy how to fight a war where the only rule is winning. We are going to show every species what humans learned during thousands of years of warfare. Sometimes you have to be willing to sacrifice everything to save everything. Dr. Carter looked concerned. Jake, are you sure about this? Human warfare techniques are much more brutal than what the aliens are used to. Dr. Carter, Jake replied, the Void Swarm is not interested in following rules of civilized warfare. They consume everything in their path without mercy or negotiation. The only way to stop them is to fight them with the same level of determination. Vextar made a sound that the translator identified as agreement. Admiral Morrison, the Galactic Council places itself under human military leadership. Teach us how to fight like humans. Jake looked around at his staff and saw determination on every face. They had 6 days to The joint military conference room on Harmony Station had never seen anything like the gathering that took place 5 days before the Void Swarm's arrival. Representatives from 12 different alien species sat alongside human military officers, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of translated voices, crystal chimes, and fluid sounds. General Kane stood at the head of the massive conference table, a holographic display showing the approaching void force floating above the assembled commanders. The numbers were staggering. Over 2 million individual void creatures organized into coordinated attack formations. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings, Kane began, we are facing the largest military threat in galactic history. Traditional tactics have failed against the Void Swarm. It is time to try something new. Fleet Commander Yolandra of the Zephyrians chimed a question through her translator. General Kane, your species has had success against the Void, but that was a small scouting force. This approaching swarm has consumed the military knowledge of 47 civilizations. How can human tactics succeed where our combined wisdom has failed? Kane activated the holographic display, showing footage from the recent battle at Kepler Station. Commander Yolandra, your question assumes that military knowledge and battlefield success are the same thing. They are not. Admiral Zektoth of the Chronari, his massive frame dwarfing the chair designed to accommodate his species, leaned forward. Explain. The Void has absorbed tactical knowledge from advanced civilizations, Kane replied. But every one of those civilizations fought wars the same way. Careful planning, technological superiority, minimal casualties, and controlled engagement rules. Commander Susan Blake stepped up beside Kane. The problem is that war is not controlled. War is chaos. The side that adapts to chaos fastest is the side that wins. An Aquarian general flowed slightly higher in his containment unit. Are you suggesting that disorder is superior to organization? I am suggesting, Blake replied, that rigid organization becomes a weakness when facing an enemy that adapts quickly. The Void Swarm has learned to counter organized tactics because every civilization they have faced used organized tactics. Jake Morrison activated another section of the holographic display. Human military history is different. We have fought wars where both sides had similar technology, similar numbers, and similar resources. Victory went to whoever was willing to adapt fastest and sacrifice the most. Dr. Patricia Webb joined the presentation, pulling up technical specifications for the new hybrid weapon systems. We have combined human durability with alien precision. The results are weapons that can function under conditions that would disable traditional alien technology. A Zephyrian engineer chimed in confusion. But these designs are so crude. Why use kinetic projectiles when energy weapons are more efficient? Webb smiled grimly. Because efficiency assumes perfect conditions. Kinetic weapons work even when your ship is damaged, your power is failing, and your targeting systems are offline. Energy weapons stop working the moment any component fails. Captain Alex Chen activated a display showing the new hybrid fleet formations. We have also redesigned fleet tactics based on human naval warfare. Instead of maintaining perfect formations, ships operate in hunter packs that can break apart and reform as needed. Admiral Zektoth studied the tactical displays with growing understanding. Your ships fight like predators, not like formations. Exactly, Chen replied. The Void Swarm moves like a single organism. Traditional fleets try to match their coordination. But human tactics are based on controlled chaos. We fight like a pack of wolves hunting a larger predator. Lieutenant Dan Foster presented the communication protocols that had been developed for the joint fleet. We have also changed how information flows during battle. Instead of centralized command sending orders to individual units, every ship captain has authority to adapt tactics as conditions change. An Etherian commander, her energy form flickering with concern, spoke through her translator. This seems very dangerous. Without central coordination, how do you prevent ships from interfering with each other? By training crews to think like their allies, Foster replied. Human military doctrine is based on small unit independence within overall objectives. Every captain knows the mission goal, but they choose their own method of achieving it. Commander Blake activated a training simulation showing mixed human and alien marine units. We have been training joint boarding teams for the past 4 days. The results are better than we expected. The simulation showed human marines working alongside Chronari soldiers to clear void creatures from a captured ship. The aliens provided heavy firepower while the humans used improvised weapons and close combat tactics. Human soldiers are trained to fight with whatever is available, Blake explained. When their primary weapon fails, they use their backup weapon. When that fails, they use improvised weapons. When those fail, they fight with their hands. A Chronari officer made a sound of disbelief. You train your soldiers to fight without weapons. We train our soldiers to fight with anything, Blake corrected. A human marine can turn a piece of broken metal into a weapon, or use a damaged ship system as an improvised explosive. Alien soldiers are trained to use specific equipment. Human soldiers are trained to use anything that can cause damage. Dr. Helen Carter presented the diplomatic aspects of the new alliance. We have also established new protocols for interspecies cooperation during combat. The key is understanding that different species have different strengths. She activated a display showing the optimal use of each species in the combined fleet. Chronari ships provide heavy assault capability. Zephyrian vessels offer precision targeting and electronic warfare. Aquarian forces excel at reconnaissance and infiltration. Human ships serve as damage absorbers and close combat specialists. Admiral Jake Morrison stood up to address the assembled commanders. The most important thing to understand is that human warfare is not about superior technology or elegant tactics. It is about the willingness to continue fighting even when you are losing. Council leader Vextar, who had been silent throughout most of the presentation, finally spoke. Admiral Morrison, are you saying that humans plan to lose battles? I am saying that humans plan to win wars, Jake replied. Sometimes you have to lose individual battles to position yourself for overall victory. The Void Swarm expects every engagement to follow predictable patterns. We are going to give them chaos instead. General Kane reactivated the tactical display showing the approaching enemy force. The Void Swarm will arrive in 18 hours. They will expect to face the same type of organized resistance they have encountered throughout the galaxy. Instead, they will face something completely new. What will they face? Asked Admiral Zektoth. Kane smiled coldly. They will face 12 alien civilizations that have learned to fight like humans. They will face technology designed for reliability instead of elegance. They will face tactics based on adaptability instead of rigid doctrine. Most importantly, they will face an enemy that refuses to surrender no matter how desperate the situation becomes. Commander Blake pulled up the final element of the battle plan. We have also prepared for the possibility of defeat. The alien commanders looked shocked at this statement. Planning for defeat was not part of traditional galactic military doctrine. If the void overruns our defensive positions, Blake continued, we have prepared mobile defense stations that can continue fighting independently. Every ship captain has sealed orders for guerrilla warfare tactics. Every marine unit has supply caches hidden throughout the system. Admiral Yolandra chimed in amazement. You are preparing to fight even after you lose? We are preparing to keep fighting until we win, Jake corrected. Human military history is full of wars that seemed hopeless until the losing side refused to quit and found a way to victory. Dr. Webb activated the final display, showing power readings from the new hybrid weapon systems. The Void Swarm has absorbed 47 civilizations worth of military knowledge, but they have never encountered enemies who fight wars designed to be unwinnable. General Kane concluded the briefing with words that would become famous throughout the galaxy. In 18 hours, we will show the Void Swarm what happens when you threaten a galaxy defended by beings who learned to fight on a world where everything was trying to kill them. We will show them the human way of war. The conference ended with alien commanders spreading throughout the combined fleet to implement human tactical doctrine. For the first time in galactic history, advanced civilizations would fight a battle using strategies developed by the species they had once considered primitive. As the alien officers departed, Jake looked at his human staff and saw the same grim determination that had carried humanity through countless wars on Earth. Tomorrow, they would find out if human tactics could save not just their own species, but an entire galaxy. The Void Swarm had consumed the military wisdom of 47 civilizations, but they had never fought an enemy that treated war not as a chess game, but as a survival contest where the only rule was refusing to die. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity had survived every threat their dangerous world had thrown at them. They were about to discover